Commander Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the massive Talon warship, his thin gray fingers tapping against the control panel. His large black eyes narrowed as he studied the blue planet on the main screen. "Another primitive world," he said. His voice was cold and flat. "Scan it." Officer Koo-jin moved her hands over the glowing controls. "The planet is called Earth. The main species calls themselves humans. They have basic space travel but have only reached their own moon and nearby planet." Do-hyun made a sound like a laugh. In the 300 years he had served the Talon Empire, he had seen many worlds like this. None had ever been a challenge. "Their weapons?" he asked. "Nuclear missiles. Simple laser technology. Nothing that can harm our ships," Koo-jin said. Do-hyun nodded. The Talon Empire had conquered 27 star systems. Their biotechnology was far beyond anything these humans could imagine. Their ships could heal themselves. Their soldiers shared one mind across many bodies. "Send a small team to their main leaders," Do-hyun ordered. "Let us see how they respond to their new masters." Admiral Ja-ho of the United Earth Defense Force was woken by an urgent call at 3 a.m. "Sir, unknown ships have entered Earth orbit. They're massive. Nothing like we've ever seen." Ja-ho dressed quickly and rushed to the command center in Seoul. There, military leaders from around the world were on large screens, all talking at once. "Everyone, please," Ja-ho said firmly. "What do we know?" General Park pointed to the main screen. 5 ships, each about 3 kilometers long. They appeared suddenly at the edge of our solar system 6 hours ago. They've ignored all attempts at communication. As they watched, a smaller ship broke away from the main fleet and headed toward Earth. "They're coming down over the Pacific," someone said. Ja-ho made a quick decision. "I'm going to meet them. Prepare a welcome team, but keep forces on alert." The Talon ship landed on a small island that had been cleared for the meeting. Ja-ho watched as the sleek, living metal craft settled on the ground. It seemed to breathe and pulse. A door opened, and 3 tall, thin figures walked out. Their skin was gray, their bodies thin but strong-looking. Their eyes were completely black, with no whites showing. "I am Admiral Ja-ho of Earth," he said, stepping forward with hands open to show he carried no weapons. "We welcome you in peace." The tallest Talon looked down at him. "I am Sub-Commander Taesung of the Talon Empire. We have claimed this system as ours." Ja-ho kept his face calm, though his heart beat faster. "This system is the home of humanity. We would like to establish friendly relations. Your species will serve or be removed." Taesung interrupted. "The Empire has spoken." The other human delegates murmured in shock. Ja-ho kept his voice level. "We are not servants. We offer friendship instead." Taesung's black eyes showed no emotion. "Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are weak. You have no allies. The Empire has conquered species far more advanced than yours." "We value our freedom," Ja-ho said firmly. "We will defend it." The Talon made that strange laughing sound again. "With what? We have watched your broadcasts. You fight among yourselves over small pieces of land. You have no unified government. You are divided and weak." Ja-ho stood tall. "You may be surprised by what humans can do when united against a common threat." Taesung turned away, clearly finished with the conversation. "You have 3 Earth days to surrender control. After that, we will begin removal procedures." As the Talons returned to their ship, Ja-ho watched with a cold feeling in his stomach. He knew that humanity faced its greatest challenge. But the Talons had made a serious mistake. They had judged humans by their technology alone. They didn't understand that humans had something special, something that had helped them survive on their dangerous home planet for thousands of years. The ability to adapt, to innovate, to fight against impossible odds. The Talons would learn this truth soon enough. 3 days passed. Earth's leaders met around the clock. Some wanted to surrender to the Talons. Others wanted to fight. No decision was reached. On the 4th day, The Talons made the decision for them. Scientist Hejun was checking data at the Mars research base when the alarm started. On his screen, he saw 5 Talon ships approaching. "This is Mars base to Talon ships," he said into the comm. "We are a peaceful research station with 238 scientists and support staff." There was no answer, just a flash of green light. Hejun had just enough time to hit the emergency broadcast button before the base exploded. In the United Nations Emergency Hall, Admiral Jeho watched the footage with horror. Not just Mars base, but the Europa station and the moon colony had been destroyed. Over 1,500 people were dead. "They didn't even warn us," said Sunmai, the head military strategist. Her face was pale, but her voice was steady. No chance to evacuate. The room was silent as the reality sank in. Earth was at war. President Kim of the newly formed Earth Defense Council stood up. "From this moment, all Earth nations are united against this threat. All resources will go toward defense and counterattack." "Counterattack?" someone asked. "With what? Their ships can destroy our bases from orbit. Our weapons can't even reach them." Sunma stepped forward. She pulled up images on the main screen. "The Talons expect us to fight like them, with direct attacks and standard tactics. We won't. Earth has a long history of the weak defeating the strong through clever tactics." She showed plans for guerrilla warfare in space. Hit and run attacks. Traps and diversions. "They think in straight lines," she said. "We will think in circles." On the Talon command ship, Du Hyun received the humans' response to his attack. He expected surrender. Instead, he got a message from Admiral Jeho. "To the Talon Empire, you have attacked without provocation and killed innocent people. Humanity will not surrender. We will fight until our last breath. And we will remember." Do Hyun showed the message to his officers. They made their strange laughing sounds. "They have courage," said Koo-jin. "But courage doesn't stop our weapons." Do Hyun nodded. "Begin the main attack tomorrow. We'll take their orbital stations first, then their major cities. They'll surrender within a week." Back on Earth, Hejun had made it back in an emergency shuttle. He worked non-stop in his lab, studying the small pieces of Talon technology they had collected during the meeting. "I found something," he told Jeho and Sunmai. "Their ships communicate on frequencies we can detect, and there's a pattern to it, like they're all connected somehow." "A hive mind," Sunmai said. "Their ships and soldiers might share thoughts." Hejun nodded. "If we disrupt this frequency, we might confuse them." Jeho looked at the data. "Can you build something to interfere with their communications?" "Yes," Hejun said, "but we need to get close to their ships." "I have an idea for that," Sunmai said. She pulled up plans for Earth's space mining ships. "These aren't military vessels. The Talons might not see them as threats. We could hide weapons inside." Jeho nodded slowly. A plan was forming. "How quickly can we modify the mining fleet?" 3 days, Sunmai said. "Maybe less if we get every engineer on the planet working on it." "Do it," Jeho ordered, "and prepare our people. This will be a long war, and we'll take heavy losses at first." But the Talons made a fatal mistake. "What's that?" Hejun asked. Jeho's eyes were hard. "They gave us no choice but to win. When humans have no choice, we become very, very dangerous." As they worked through the night, news came in. The Talon fleet was moving into position for a major attack. Earth had hours, at most. But for the first time since the Talons arrived, there was a feeling of hope. Humanity had faced extinction many times in its long history. Each time, they had adapted and survived. They would do so again, no matter the cost. The first month of war was brutal. Talon ships destroyed Earth's main space stations and military bases. Cities burned. Millions died. But the Talons did not find the easy victory they expected. Engineer Jinwoo worked in an underground lab, his fingers black with grease. Before him lay pieces of a Talon scout ship that had crashed in the Pacific Ocean. "The metal is alive," he told the team around him. "It can repair itself if given the right energy." Jinwoo had been a car mechanic before the war. Now he was one of Earth's most important scientists. "If we understand how it works," he continued, "we might be able to use it against them." In orbit around Earth, Captain Yunji prepared her crew. Their ship looked like a simple transport vessel from the outside. Inside, it was packed with weapons and the jamming device He-Jun had created. "Remember," she told her crew, "we won't win in a direct fight. Get close, activate the jammer, fire everything we have, then run." Her crew nodded. They were miners, doctors, and teachers, not soldiers, but they were ready to fight. "Talon patrol ship approaching," her sensor operator said. "Begin recording everything," Yunji ordered. "Whatever happens, make sure Earth gets the data." The Talon ship moved closer, its green scanning beams washing over them. "Now," Yunji shouted. The jamming device activated. The Talon ship's movements became jerky, uncertain. Yunji's ship fired its hidden weapons. The Talon's living metal hull bubbled and broke. For the first time, humans had destroyed a Talon ship. But the victory came at a cost. The Talon ship managed to fire back before it died. Yunji's vessel was hit badly. "Engine room destroyed," someone reported. "Life support failing." Yunji nodded calmly. "Send the data to Earth." As their air leaked away, the crew watched the recording transmit. Their sacrifice would not be wasted. On his command ship, Do-hyun received news of the lost patrol vessel. At first, he didn't believe it. "Humans cannot defeat our ships," he said. "Check again." "It is confirmed," Kujin replied. The humans used some kind of jamming technology that affected the ship's connection to the hive mind. Then they attacked with missiles hidden in what appeared to be a civilian vessel. Do-hyun's black eyes narrowed. Deception, trickery, not the actions of an honorable species, but effective, Kujin noted. There are reports of similar attacks in 3 other sectors. Do-hyun stood up straight. "Increase our forces. I want 5 more battle cruisers. We will crush these humans completely." Back on Earth, Jinwoo studied the data from Yunji's ship. He hadn't slept in 3 days, but his eyes were bright with excitement. "The jamming works," he told Admiral Jeho. "And I've learned something else. The Talon ships are controlled by a central mind. When we break that connection, the ships become much less effective." Jeho nodded. Yunji and her crew gave their lives for this information. "We will use it well." He turned to Sunme. "Prepare more ships, small, fast ones. We can't match their firepower, but we can confuse them, hit them where they don't expect, and escape before they can respond." Sunme smiled grimly. Humans have always been good at being pests. In the following weeks, small human ships attacked Talon vessels throughout the solar system. They never won big victories, but they learned from each battle. Jinwoo created better jammers. The ships became faster, the weapons stronger. The Talons still controlled space around Earth, but they were growing frustrated. They had conquered 27 systems without serious resistance. Now, these primitive humans were actually fighting back. In his private chamber, Do-hyun reviewed the latest battle reports. For the first time in his 300-year life, he felt something new: doubt. These humans were learning too quickly, adapting too well. It was almost as if, "No," he said to himself, "they are just animals. Clever animals, but still animals. We will break them soon." But deep inside, a cold feeling was growing. What if the Talon Empire had finally met its match? 6 months into the war, Earth was a different place. Factories that once made cars now built spacecraft parts. Children studied Talon language and biology in school. Everyone worked toward one goal: survival. Jinwoo stood in a massive underground facility, watching workers assemble new ships. These weren't the simple converted mining vessels from the early days of the war. These were true warships, built with a mix of human and Talon technology. The living metal responds well to our modifications, Jinwoo explained to Admiral Jiho. We can't grow it like they can, but we can shape it and use it. Jiho nodded, impressed. How many ships can we build each week? 20 small fighters, 5 medium cruisers. It's not enough to match their fleet, but it's a start. Jiho put his hand on the cool, slightly pulsing metal of the nearest ship. 6 months ago, we couldn't even damage their vessels. Now we're building our own with their technology. Humans adapt quickly. In a military base under the ruins of Seoul, Commander Ta-1 trained Earth's special forces. Men and women moved through a course designed to mimic Talon ship interiors. Faster, Ta-1 called out. Talons have quick reflexes. You need to be quicker. The soldiers pushed harder, their movements precise. They had been training 16 hours a day for months. Ta-1 had studied every bit of information about Talon biology and behavior. He knew their weaknesses now. Their eyes were sensitive to certain light frequencies. Their hearing was poor in low tones. They couldn't handle rapid temperature changes. All of this went into his training program. Again, he shouted, we need to be perfect. On his flagship, Do-hyun was growing angry. What should have been a simple conquest had turned into a drawn-out conflict. How are they adapting so quickly? He demanded. Koo-jin displayed battle data on the main screen. They learned from every encounter. They'd started using our own technology against us. That should be impossible, Do-hyun said. Our biotechnology is linked to Talon DNA. They found ways around that, Koo-jin replied. And there's something else. Our ships work best when connected to the hive mind. But humans. She showed footage of human ships working in small, independent groups. Each group acted without central command, adapting to changing battle conditions on their own. They don't need a hive mind, Do-hyun said slowly. Each ship, each human can think independently. It was a disturbing thought. In Talon society, the group mind was everything. Individual thought was seen as primitive and dangerous. There's more, Koo-jin continued. They've started attacking in patterns we can't predict. Sometimes they retreat when they could win. Other times they fight when they should run. Do-hyun's gray fingers tapped against his control panel. They're testing us, learning our responses. For the first time, Do-hyun felt something like respect for these humans. They were worthy opponents after all. Back on Earth, Heo-jun made a breakthrough. He had been studying the Talon hive mind frequency for months. We can do more than just jam it, he told Jiho and Sunmai. We can send false information. Sunmai leaned forward. You mean we can lie to their ships? Heo-jun nodded excitedly. Make them see things that aren't there. Make them think friendly ships are enemies. Jiho smiled. It was the first time he had smiled in months. When can we test this? 2 weeks, Heo-jun said. We need to perfect the signal match. Jiho looked at the star map on the wall. Talon forces controlled most of the solar system, but they were stretched thin. They hadn't expected such long resistance. We've been on defense for 6 months, Jiho said. Maybe it's time we start taking back what's ours. Sun Li nodded. The Talons think they know humans now, but they've only seen us fighting for survival. They haven't seen us fighting to win. As they planned their first major offensive, news came in from the outer system. 3 more Talon battle cruisers had arrived. The war was far from over, but for the first time, humans were fighting on equal terms, not because their technology matched the Talons, but because their minds, their creativity, and their determination had proven to be weapons the Talons couldn't counter. The most feared species in the galaxy was learning a hard lesson. Technology alone doesn't win wars. 1 year into the war, Earth was ready for its first major offensive. The plan was called Operation Hydra, named after the mythical beast with many heads that could not be killed by cutting off just one. Scientist Min Seo stood before the Earth Defense Council. Her lab coat was wrinkled from days without rest, but her eyes were bright with excitement. "We've created a biological agent that can temporarily disrupt the Talon neural network," she explained. "It won't kill them, but it will make it hard for them to connect to their hive mind for about 6 hours." Admiral Jiho nodded. "That's our window. We hit them in multiple places at once. They won't be able to coordinate their defense." Sun Mi pointed to the star map. "We've identified 3 key Talon bases in our system. If we take these, we can push them back beyond Mars." The Council voted unanimously to approve the operation. On the bridge of Earth's flagship, the Phoenix, Jiho gave the order to begin. Across the solar system, 200 human ships moved into position. Each captain had full authority to adapt their tactics as needed. This was something the Talons couldn't understand. A military that functioned without constant central control. "Release the agent," Jiho ordered. Small, fast ships released Min Sio's creation into the atmospheres of 3 Talon bases. The colorless, odorless gas was inhaled by the Talons before they knew what was happening. On his command ship, Du Hyun felt the connection to the hive mind grow fuzzy, then fade. Around him, other Talons clutched their heads in pain and confusion. "What is happening?" he demanded, fighting through the mental fog. "Unknown biological attack," Ku Jin reported, her voice strained. "We're losing contact with our forces across the system." Do Hyun tried to think clearly. Without the hive mind, each Talon had to make decisions alone, something they rarely had to do. "Send orders to all bases," he said. "Defend at all costs." But his words came too late. Human ships were already attacking from multiple directions. The battle for Moon Base Alpha was fierce. Commander Taiwan led a team of special forces onto the base, while Earth ships engaged Talon vessels outside. The Talons fought well, even cut off from their hive mind. But they were confused, making mistakes. Taiwan's team moved through the base, using the weaknesses they had trained for. "Remember," Taiwan told his team, "they'll try to regroup. Don't let them form large groups." Room by room, they took the base. Similar scenes played out at Mars Station and the Jupiter mining colony. By the time the Talons could reconnect to their hive mind, it was too late. They had lost 3 major bases in a single day. But the biggest surprise came at Jupiter. When human forces broke into the main prison, they found cells full of alien beings, other species that the Talons had conquered and enslaved. Jiho spoke with the leader of these aliens, a tall 4-armed being called Namu. "The Talons conquered our worlds decades ago," Namu explained. "We are forced to work for them. Many of us have died resisting." Jiho extended his hand in friendship. "Join us. Together, we might be able to defeat them." Namu's large eyes widened. "You believe you can defeat the Talon Empire? They control thousands of worlds." "We've taken back 3 of our bases in one day," Jiho said, "and we're just getting started." When Du Hyun reported the day's losses to the Talon High Command, he was met with disbelief. "How could primitives defeat our forces?" demanded Supreme Commander Yuri. Her image glowed on the screen, her displeasure clear. "They are not what we thought," Du Hyun admitted. "They adapt quickly. They think independently. And now they've freed some of our slave species." Yuri's black eyes narrowed. "This is unacceptable. You promised an easy victory, Du Hyun. The High Command is sending more ships. You will crush these humans, or you will be replaced." As the transmission ended, Du Hyun felt a rare emotion. Fear, not of the humans, but of failure. In Talon society, failure meant death. He had underestimated these humans, and now he was paying the price. But he would not make that mistake again. The next phase of the war would show no mercy. What Du Hyun didn't know was that humanity was just getting started. With their new alien allies providing knowledge of Talon weaknesses and homeworld defenses, Earth's forces were planning something much bigger than just defending their own system. They were planning to take the war to the Talons themselves. The news spread quickly across Earth. Humans were not alone in fighting the Talons. Other species had been battling them for years. What started as a war for survival now became something bigger, a fight for freedom across the galaxy. Ambassador Jewry had been a language teacher before the war. Now she found herself speaking with aliens from 12 different worlds. They gathered in a large room under the rebuilt United Nations building in Geneva. Each of your species has suffered under Talon rule, Jewry said. Each has fought back in their own way, but always alone, separated. That ends today. Namu, the four-armed alien leader, nodded. The Talons keep conquered species apart. They fear what would happen if we united. With good reason, said another alien, Korra, whose skin glowed with a soft blue light. Together, we know their weaknesses, their patrol routes, the locations of their main worlds. Jewry smiled. And we have something they don't understand, the will to be free. By the end of the day, the Galactic Liberation Front was formed, the first alliance of multiple species against the Talon Empire. Admiral Jeho walked through the massive new shipyard in orbit around Earth. Ships of various designs filled the space. Earth vessels with their practical, military look, and alien craft with strange and beautiful designs. How many can we field? Jeho asked Jinwoo, who had become Earth's lead engineer. 400 Earth ships, about 300 from our allies, Jinwoo replied. It's still smaller than the Talon main fleet, but we have advantages they don't expect. Jeho nodded. The biggest advantage was that the Talons still didn't know how many allies Earth had gained. Their spies reported only the human ships. Are the stealth systems working? Jinwoo smiled proudly. Better than expected. The Baka species helped us improve them. Their ships can now stay invisible to Talon sensors for up to 5 hours. Jeho looked out at the gathered fleet. A year and a half ago, humanity had barely left their own planet. Now they were leading an alliance of starfaring species. Begin the campaign tomorrow, he ordered. It's time to free more worlds. The next 3 months saw battle after battle as the alliance pushed outward from Earth's solar system. They fought differently than the Talons expected. Small, fast ships would appear, strike hard, then vanish. Ground forces would use guerrilla tactics, hitting and running. Humans taught these methods to species that had only known direct, traditional warfare. The combination of human tactics and alien technology proved devastating. Do-hyun watched reports of yet another defeat with growing rage. 3 more systems had fallen to the Alliance in the past week alone. They're moving too fast, he told his officers. We can't predict where they'll strike next. That was by design. Jeho never attacked where the Talons were strongest. The Alliance hit supply lines, communication hubs, and lightly defended outposts. They freed enslaved populations who then joined the fight. For the first time in its long history, the Talon Empire was shrinking, not growing. On the Talon homeworld, the High Command met in emergency session. Supreme Commander Yuri's voice was cold with anger. Do-hyun has failed completely. The humans not only defend their world but lead other species against us. This cannot continue. The 7 members of the High Command shared thoughts through their hive mind. The decision was unanimous. Recall Do-hyun to the homeworld, Yuri ordered. He will answer for his failures. Do-hyun received the order with a feeling of dread. Being recalled meant almost certain death, but he had one last chance to redeem himself. Prepare the World Breaker, he told Kujin. If we can't defeat the humans, we can at least destroy their planet. Kujin looked shocked. The World Breaker is meant only as a last resort. The High Command has not authorized. I am still in command here. Do-hyun shouted, his normal calm shattered. The humans have humiliated me. They will pay before I return home. What Do-hyun didn't know was that his ship had been infiltrated. A small device, planted by one of the alien allies, was recording every word. Within hours, the Alliance knew about the World Breaker, a weapon capable of destroying entire planets. The war was entering its most dangerous phase. The Talons were desperate, and a desperate enemy would do anything to avoid defeat. But so would humans fighting for their home. News of the world-breaker weapon spread quickly through the Alliance. Emergency meetings were called. For the first time, real fear showed on people's faces. A weapon that could destroy entire planets was beyond anything they had prepared for. "We have the location," Hejun told the War Council. "The World Breaker is being prepared at a secret Talon base near the edge of our galaxy." Admiral Jeho studied the images. The base was massive, with defenses unlike anything they had faced before. "How long until it's operational?" he asked. 2 weeks at most," said Namu, who had sources inside the Talon network. "Du-Hyun plans to use it on Earth first." The room grew silent. After 2 years of war, when victory had seemed possible, they now faced their greatest threat. "We need to destroy it before it's ready," Commander Ta-Won said. "A direct attack would fail, but a small team might get through their defenses." Jeho nodded slowly. "A stealth mission. Get in, plant explosives. Get out." "I'll lead it," Ta-Won volunteered. "My special forces have trained for this kind of mission." "I'll go too," Hejun said, surprising everyone. "The World Breaker has a central control system. I can disable it, but I need to be there in person." Jeho looked at the scientist with respect. Hejun had never been in combat, but his knowledge would be essential. "It's settled then," Jeho said. "We'll send our best ships as a distraction while the strike team infiltrates the base." What no one said aloud was that this would likely be a one-way trip. Engineer Jinwoo worked day and night to prepare for the mission. He created special explosive devices that could damage the living metal of Talon structures. More importantly, he developed a computer virus that could corrupt the Talon collective consciousness. "This is the most dangerous thing I've ever built," he told Hejun as they loaded the virus onto a small device. "If you can get this into their main system, it will spread confusion through their entire network." Hejun took the device carefully. "How long will the effect last?" "Hours, maybe a day," Jinwoo said. "Enough time to destroy the World Breaker, I hope." They both knew that enough time might also mean enough time to die. The mission began 3 days later, while the main Alliance fleet engaged Talon forces near Jupiter, making it look like a major offensive. A single stealth ship carrying Ta-Won, Hejun, and 20 Special Forces soldiers slipped past Talon defenses. They approached the massive space station where the World Breaker was being built. Up close, it was even more frightening. A huge cannon extending from a central hub, powered by energy that made the surrounding space warp and twist. "Their sensors can't detect us," the pilot reported. "We'll dock at the maintenance port." The team moved silently into the station, using the paths shown to them by Namu's intelligence. Twice they had to hide as Talon patrols passed by. "This way," Hejun whispered, following the signal on his device. "The control center is 3 levels down." They reached a massive door guarded by 4 Talons. Ta-Won signaled his team. With practiced precision, they took down the guards before they could sound an alarm. Beyond the door was the heart of the World Breaker, a chamber where Talon scientists worked at stations surrounding a pulsing core of energy. "Cover me," Hejun said. While the soldiers engaged the surprised Talons, he ran to the main control panel. His fingers flew over the alien console, planting Jinwoo's virus. The screen flickered, then glowed red. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. "It's working," Hejun shouted. "The virus is spreading through their network." Ta-Won nodded as he placed explosive charges around the room. "We have 10 minutes to get out. Move." But as they turned to leave, a squad of Talon guards burst through the door. In the firefight that followed, half of Ta-Won's team fell. "Go!" Ta-Won shouted to Hejun. "Get back to the ship. I'll hold them off." Hejun hesitated, but another soldier pulled him away. As they ran, he looked back to see Ta-Won fighting fiercely, buying them time with his life. Only 7 of the original 21 made it back to the ship. As they pulled away from the station, the first explosions began. The World Breaker's energy core became unstable, then collapsed in on itself. The resulting explosion tore a hole in space itself, destroying not just the weapon but 3 Talon battle cruisers nearby. Hajun watched through the viewport, his eyes wet with tears. Todd 1 did it. The World Breaker is gone. The cost had been high, too high, but Earth would live another day. 4 years had passed since the Talons first appeared above Earth. What began as a simple conquest had become the longest, most difficult war in Talon history. And now, after years of fighting back, the Alliance was ready for its greatest challenge, an attack on the Talon homeworld itself. Admiral Jiho stood before a massive holographic display showing thousands of ships, the largest fleet ever assembled in the galaxy. Vessels of every shape and size, from 36 different species, all united under one banner. "This is our moment," Jiho told the gathered commanders. "The Talons have pulled back to defend their core worlds. Their fleet is still larger than ours, but they're stretched thin across too many fronts." Captain Yunji, now commanding Earth's largest battleship, pointed to the display. "Our intelligence shows the Talon home defense fleet here, here, and here. They've set up a triple defensive ring. Can we break through?" asked Korra, the blue glowing alien commander. Jiho nodded to Yunji, who stepped forward with a confident smile. "We've developed a battle plan unlike anything the Talons will expect. Each battle group will have its own objectives, its own timing. There will be no central command for them to target." This was the human advantage, the ability to coordinate without being tied to a single control point. While the Talons relied on their hive mind, Alliance ships could act both together and independently. "Each commander will make decisions based on the situation they face," Yunji continued. "This is not a rigid plan. It's a framework for chaos, controlled chaos that we understand but they cannot predict." As the commanders studied the plan, there was a mix of concern and admiration on their faces. Many alien species preferred order and structure in battle. This human approach was different, flexible, adaptive, almost artistic in its complexity. "We launch tomorrow," Jiho said. "This war ends at its source." On the Talon homeworld, Supreme Commander Yuri had taken direct control after Du-hyun's failure. The once beautiful planet was now covered with defense installations. The sky was filled with battle cruisers. "Reports indicate the Alliance fleet is moving," a Talon officer reported. "They appear to be gathering for a major assault." Yuri's black eyes narrowed. "They wouldn't dare attack our homeworld. It's too well defended." But deep in the hive mind, a new feeling was spreading among the Talons: doubt. For the first time in their 10,000-year history, they faced an enemy that had consistently outthought them, adapted faster than they could respond, and united other species against them. Yuri felt it and fought against it. "Double the patrols. Alert all defense stations. We will crush this human-led rebellion once and for all." What Yuri didn't know was that small Alliance ships had already slipped through their defenses, carrying infiltration teams to key points around the planet. The battle began at dawn. Alliance ships appeared at multiple points around the Talon system, engaging defense fleets simultaneously. The space around the Talon homeworld erupted in flashes of weapons fire. Jiho watched from the bridge of his flagship as the first wave engaged. "Group 3 is breaking through in Sector 5, reported an officer. "Group 7 is facing heavy resistance in Sector 2. "Tell Group 7 to pull back and regroup," Jiho ordered. "Group 5 should move to support Group 3. This was the strength of the plan. It could change and adapt as the battle developed. When one approach failed, another would be tried. The Talons responded with massive firepower, destroying many Alliance ships, but they couldn't adjust quickly enough to the constantly changing attack patterns. "Sir," an officer called out, "the infiltration teams report success. Defense systems in the southern hemisphere are down." Jiho nodded. "Send in the second wave." As the battle raged on, The true scale of it became clear. Millions of ships fighting across an entire star system. It was the largest space conflict in galactic history. On the Talon homeworld, Uri received increasingly desperate reports. "The Alliance is breaking through our second defensive ring," an officer reported. "Our ships cannot coordinate fast enough to respond to their tactics." Uri's face showed no emotion, but inside, rage built. These humans and their allies were destroying everything the Talons had built over thousands of years. "Activate the final protocol," she ordered. "If we cannot hold the homeworld, no one will have it." The officer looked shocked. "But Supreme Commander, that would mean—" "Do it," Uri shouted. "Better destruction than defeat." 5 years after the Talons first appeared above Earth, the war finally ended. The Talon surrender ceremony took place on neutral ground, a beautiful uninhabited planet with 3 moons. Admiral Jeho, now with gray in his hair and new lines on his face, stood tall as the Talon representatives approached. Beside him stood Ambassador Juri and leaders from 27 alien species. All had suffered under Talon rule. All had fought alongside humans to win their freedom. The Talon delegation was led by Supreme Commander Uri herself. Her once proud posture was now bent with defeat. Behind her walked the captured Du-hyun, in chains. "The Talon Empire formally surrenders to the Alliance of Free Worlds," Uri said, her voice flat. "Our forces will withdraw from all occupied systems. Our battle fleets will be dismantled." Jeho nodded but did not smile. Too many had died for this moment to feel like a triumph. It was simply the necessary end to a terrible conflict. "The Alliance accepts your surrender," he said. "But this is not just an end. It is a beginning." 1 month later, representatives from over 100 species gathered on Earth. Once considered a backwater planet of little importance, Earth had become the center of a new galactic community. Ambassador Juri addressed the gathered delegates in the rebuilt United Nations Hall. "The Galactic Confederation is founded today on principles that humans have long valued: freedom, cooperation, and the right of all beings to determine their own future," she said. "No species will rule over another. No world will stand alone against threats." The delegates applauded, a strange mix of sounds from beings with different bodies and ways of showing approval. Many of these aliens had originally looked down on humans as primitive. Now they understood that technology alone did not determine a species' worth. Humans had shown qualities that some more advanced species had lost: creativity, adaptability, and an unbreakable spirit. In a quiet moment after the ceremony, Jeho visited the cell where Du-hyun was being held. The once mighty Talon commander looked up as Jeho entered. "Have you come to gloat, Admiral?" Du-hyun asked. Jeho shook his head. "I came to understand. After all this time, I want to know why you thought you could defeat us so easily." Du-hyun was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice softer than Jeho had ever heard it. "We measured species by their technology, their weapons, their ships," he said. "By those measures, you were far behind us. What we failed to see was something we had lost long ago." "And what was that?" Jeho asked. "The ability to think as individuals. The drive to improve, to adapt. Our hive mind made us strong but rigid. You humans." Du-hyun's black eyes seemed to look inward. "You were flexible. When we broke your ships, you built better ones. When we blocked your tactics, you created new ones." Jeho nodded slowly. "Evolution favors adaptation, not strength alone." "The Talon Empire ruled for 10,000 years, Du-hyun said. "We conquered hundreds of species, and none ever defeated us. Until humans. We didn't do it alone." Jeho reminded him. "We had allies." "Allies you found and united," Du-hyun countered. "Something no other species had done before. That too was uniquely human." As Jeho left the cell, he thought about how far humanity had come. From a single planet to the center of a galactic community. From fighting for survival to building something new and better. Years later, The story of the Talon War became a lesson taught to every child on every world in the Confederation. It was not just a story of victory against impossible odds. It was a reminder that true strength comes in many forms. The most advanced technology doesn't always win. The largest fleet doesn't always triumph. The oldest civilization isn't always the wisest. And a species from a small blue planet, who had only just begun to explore the stars, could change the course of galactic history forever. Throughout the vastness of space, word spread from world to world, system to system. Never start a war with humans. They don't know how to lose.